Making anchor charts is like a rite of passage. I think it turned out awesome. Hey sweet friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maylene Call from Mrs. Call's Campers. I am a first year first grade teacher in Middle Tennessee. Today we're talking about digital anchor charts, which is why I have my laptop ready to go for you guys. I'm gonna walk you through how I create digital anchor charts in my room. But first, I want to kind of make sure we are all on the same page as far as what an anchor chart is. I use anchor charts in my classroom all the time for so many different things. But really the idea of an anchor chart is that it's something that you're creating with your students. Otherwise, we call it a poster. So this technique is going to be useful whether you want to create anchor charts or posters. Anchor charts are an awesome way to learn whether you teach lower elementary, upper elementary, high school. So many people use them. With the lower elementary kids, it's definitely more visual, less text, because they can't read as much, and with the upper grades it's more text heavy. But regardless, it's something that your students are going to use and refer back to for their reading and their writing, so they are really important in every classroom. So in my classroom personally, I love using anchor charts whenever we are introducing a new concept, whenever we're going through a unit and adding information as we go, or we'll do it if a concept really needs to be broken down, which in lower elementary it's just about everything. And like I mentioned earlier, it is something that's going to be supporting their reading and writing. A lot of modeling happens through that. Now, the technique I'm going to show you today is not going to be something you are going to do for every anchor chart, and I just want to make that clear. I do not do this for every anchor chart. I only do it for certain ones every now and then, but it takes a lot of the work out of creating anchor charts, which if you are just coming into education, let's be real, making anchor charts is like a rite of passage. It is so much fun to just get a pen or a marker and sit there and draw your anchor chart. If you teach lower elementary, it is just fun, but there are times when it just can be a lot. There are a few different ways to make anchor charts. The first one is the old-fashioned way, literally just going in with a marker and your chart tablet or your anchor chart paper and writing things down, making those teacher sketches that are very terrible but your kids will compliment you on anyway. The second way is to trace them on your projector. I actually have a friend on here, Shelly, who put out an awesome video on how to trace anchor charts, so I'm gonna link that for you guys. Another thing that I've seen teachers do that isn't necessarily creating, but it is still used as a resource for kids, is to take pictures of their anchor charts and keep them in like a binder for kids to reference if they use a lot of them, which I don't think is as effective as having everything up on your wall, but you know, maybe it's an idea you want to consider. I also thought about at the beginning of the year just using my projector and displaying a sheet of paper and creating an anchor chart on there with them, and then copying that for every student, and they could have a copy of that anchor chart, and you could even tile them, make them bigger or smaller, whatever you needed to do. There's just a couple of ideas. What I ended up doing these past few months is digital anchor charts. So what I do is I hop into PowerPoint and I create a new document with my kids, and before I show you how to do it, I just want to tell you why I love it. Now, like I said, this is not something that is going to be for every lesson every day all the time. It is just for certain things. Definitely next year I know that I am going to be a way better planner and have anchor charts all ready to go, but I will take just a couple of elements that I know I want already in my anchor chart, get them ready in my PowerPoint document, and display that on my projector for the kids, and we will add in information together. All my clip art is picked out beforehand if I want clip art in there, and I can type on the screen and they can see it as we're going and talking, and the text is big enough for every student to see. I know sometimes when you're writing on the anchor chart paper, kids are like looking up, they're sitting on their knees trying to look and see. Sometimes you write it too small and it's just not as easy for the kids to read at times. So this kind of solves that problem. If you're typing it and your kids are looking at your projector, then you have a really easy way to give access to all of your kids, which I think is fantastic. So I've done it that way where I just type and create with them watching on, so the way my room is set up. I'll insert a picture right here of what my teaching area is like. The projector obviously projects onto the whiteboard. I have my little stool where I will sit during lessons, so I'll have my laptop on that table and I will kind of be creating things and looking at them. Their bodies are still faced towards the board, but they can also look at me and I can still talk to them. I still give my kids a chance to provide that feedback. I'm typing what they're saying, things like that. So that's one method that you can do. And for this method, you could even leave that up while they're working on something. So we just did Tennessee units, and so I didn't even print that one because we didn't need to reference it all the time. It was just while we were creating these Tennessee, you know, tasks and things like that. And so I would project it whenever we were talking about Tennessee. It's kind of the same thing as pulling down an anchor chart and bringing it to their level whenever you're studying a certain topic. It's just bigger, and it's big enough for everyone to see from anywhere in the room. So I loved that. The other way I have done it is the way that I'm really excited to share with you guys today, and that is by creating my outline ahead of time. So similar to if you were tracing your anchor chart and getting the bones of it ready for your lesson, that's what I do. I just did it digitally. And I did this with our fairy tales unit, and it was fantastic because we would go through a book. I had an outline ready for the day. I had my clip art ready for the day. As we were talking about it, I drug all the elements in, I typed what they were saying, we charted our thinking, and then I printed it that night, and the next day I hung it up in our classroom. So as we moved through the units, all those posters were there. It was fantastic, and it is super, super easy to do. I also want to mention there are a ton of teachers who have anchor charts on sale. I think a lot of them are for more of the middle grades, but there's some really good anchor charts out there that are more like posters that you can download from Teachers Pay Teachers and print them using the method that I'm going to show you today. So without me rambling any longer, let's get started. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you guys so I can show you the digital anchor charts I was talking about and show you how to make them. Alright, so the first anchor chart is our Little Red Riding Hood anchor chart. Before the kids got here, I had the title already there, I had Little Red off to the side, I had the villain off to the side, and I had setting, main idea, and vocabulary there, but it wasn't filled in. And then I had this T-chart ready to go. So I had already divided my anchor chart the way I wanted to, and all of this took all of 5 minutes. It was super quick. So once we got to talking about the book, we added in the good versus bad. We did the character traits of Little Red. We drug her in. We did the character traits of the villain, and villain was an important word that I actually misspelled, but we're not going to talk about that. Next one we did was Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Here's an example. Again, all I had was the title. The clip art was off to the side. I had everything separated out, but I basically planned what I wanted to do before doing it with the kids, which is what we do anyway. So for example, for the Three Little Pigs, all of these elements were out there. So important words and phrases that you want, you can go ahead and type out ahead of time if you want to. But like I said, the real reason I love doing these anchor charts up like this is because all the kids can see it. You don't have to worry about your drawings looking perfect. Like, everything is so much easier, and you can move things around, which you can't do if you're actually writing. So if you make a mistake or misspell something or run out of room somewhere, that doesn't happen, because as you're building this one, you can go ahead and move different things around. You can make the font bigger or smaller if you need to adjust it. You can be more colorful. You don't have to spend time opening and closing markers. Like, it's just a really easy thing to do. Like I said, I don't do it with everything, but it is super, super simple. So if you are interested in this kind of anchor chart building, I'll show you kind of what it looks like in my room right now. If you're interested in making anchor charts kind of like this, I'll show you what they look like in my classroom. I literally just hole punched them and paper clipped them onto my ceiling because I was running out of wall space at this point, but the ceiling works just fine. Just don't tell the fire marshal. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how I do something like that and how I print them, which is what you really are probably here for. So you're going to open PowerPoint. The first thing you want to do is go to PowerPoint, open up a new presentation, and now we need to size it. So anchor chart paper is 24 by 32 inches. So if you want your anchor chart to mimic what an actual anchor chart paper layout might be, then you can do 24 by 32. On my computer, I just have to go to File and Page Setup. On yours, you can also go to Design and then click Slide Size, and your page setup will be there. So I am going to go ahead and make it 24 by 32 inches. And there is our template. So whenever I'm editing this with my class, I'll make it full screen and I'll have it in this editing mode, because obviously if you're presenting it, you can't edit it, and I'll kind of just type on there with them. So let's just make this one say how to, obviously need to make the slide size bigger because our scaling is bigger, how to print your anchor, charts. and we'll just make it a cute font. I'm gonna add a couple things on here so you guys can see what it'll look like once I print it and line it up. All right, that's what I'm gonna make it say, and I'm gonna add in like a fun little icon just to show you like printing a picture. If you didn't know, you can add icons in. Just go to the insert tab and click on icons right here. And I'm gonna look for a clock, and let's just do it kind of big so you can see what it would be like to kind of piece an anchor chart together. All right, so when you are ready to print your anchor chart, what you need to do is save it as a PDF first, because we are going to be using Adobe as our way of getting this anchor chart to be full size. So let's go to File, Export, Anchor Charts. And we'll check down here that it's saving as a PDF and click export. Now you still have your PowerPoint document. I recommend just saving this as anchor charts. So that way, whenever you want to add a new anchor chart, you can just click new slide right here and you can start creating again without having to do the page setup and all that. But you do whatever you want to do. So now that our anchor chart is saved as a PDF, we are going to open it, but we need to open it with Adobe. So I'm going to open with Adobe, and that is usually the default. Most of us already have Adobe on our computers. Adobe is not an editing software, it is just a document viewing software, so you can't really edit it. I mean, you can, but that's not what it's for. This is just for viewing documents. So I'm gonna go ahead and go into the print option. Now, when you click this button, your default might be over here on this size tab. And if you look over to the right, it'll give you a preview. It says it is 34% scale, because remember we made it to be 24 by 32. And then it says it is 8.5 by 11 inches. That's your typical sheet of paper, is 8.5 by 11 inches. What we wanna do is make it larger than a normal sheet of paper. So what we're gonna do is click the poster option. When you do that, for me, it's gonna default to 15 pages. So if you wanted your anchor chart to be 24 by 32, it would be 15 pages to print. I do not want that. I personally think it would be a lot of work to do 15 pages worth of this, because you'd have to trim all those pages. So what I like to do is kind of knock it down and get it to 4 pages, maybe 6 different pages, and that way it just makes it a little bit easier on you. So over here you can see our scale is set to 100%. We're gonna lower that. So if I lower it to 75%, it's gonna be 8 pages, which is a really good size. If I lower it to 65%, it has it at 6 pages. I think the 65% looks good. The cool thing about this is that you can make your anchor charts be whatever you want them to be. So if you did want your anchor chart paper to be more landscape and you wanted to have columns and compare lots of things, that would be an awesome thing to use this method for, because you could have as much room as you wanted. You can adjust things, fit things exactly as you need them. For this demonstration, I'm gonna go ahead and print this one. So I have it set to poster, 65%. The overlap is 1/2 inch, and then I have cut marks checked. You want these cut marks because they're gonna help you line everything up. So it shows you right here with the dotted lines where you will be cutting and where you'll have to piece things together. So if you are using something and you have a lot of detailed work over these cut lines, it's gonna be harder to piece together. Ideally, if you could have white space over those cut lines, it would be the easiest, but it's not always gonna work out that way. So I'm going to go ahead and send this to my printer and then show you guys how to piece it together. Alright, so our anchor chart is all printed out onto 6 nice sheets for us. We even have those perfect little cut marks to show us exactly where we need to cut. Now for this part, you absolutely can use scissors. You can, but let's be honest, none of us can cut perfectly straight with scissors. If it's a smaller project, it might work. If it's a bigger project, you're definitely gonna notice that difference. So I personally like to use this. This is a Cricut cutter. I actually bought this before I bought my swing cutter, just because it was like $10 at Walmart. So I really recommend picking one of these up, especially if you think you definitely wanna do something like this. It makes cutting super easy, super quick, and it is honestly the best tool to use for this job because it has a little window here and you can line up your cuts better than you can with a swing cutter or with scissors. So highly recommend this, and this is what I will be using to cut our anchor chart. All right, so what I like to do first is lay out my pieces of paper so that it looks like my anchor chart before I make cuts, because you can kind of be smart with your cuts. You could cut each individual paper. Me personally, I don't like doing that, so I'm going to show you what I do. All right, so I've laid it out on my desk for you guys, and you can see where we have that overlap. It kind of gives us some room to cut and piece it all together. Now we are going to cut exactly at these little crosshair cut marks. That is going to be our guide. However, if you look at the entire anchor chart, you can see that you're going to be making a lot of the same cuts for the borders of the paper. So over on the left, I'm going to be cutting this border off, and I'm going to be cutting this border off. So what I like to do is stack the edges of my paper because that border is going to be the same. I also like to stack these pages and cut on this border because that border is going to be the same across the entire page. Then I will stack these two papers and cut the top border because the top border is going to be the same, so there's no point in cutting them individually. And then the same with the bottom. When we get into the inner cuts, I do like to do those one section at a time. So I'll do the top section of this one, and I'll do the top section of this one. It'll make sense when we start cutting, but I just kind of wanted to show you what I did so I didn't have to cut each individual paper individually. So I'm just making sure to line up this little crosshair with where my blade is going to cut. Alright, so I have cut all of the outside borders, and now I'm going to start working on the inside borders. So I'm going to use these two sheets of paper, cut off the top. These two sheets of paper, I'm going to cut off the bottom right here for these cut marks, and the top. So all that overlapping is going to be gone. I want to point out, after you've already cut one of your papers, like for example, I have cut this paper this way, the little tiny cut mark still exists. If I look closely, I can see that very, very tiny cut mark where I need to cut right here. So I'm going to cut both of those little cut marks. Alright, so here's what it looks like kind of pushed together, so you can see all the white space is gone, and this is what it's going to look like. Now all you have left to do is tape your anchor chart together. You can tape it directly on the front, and that is going to be the easiest way to do it. I like to tape it on the back because that's just the way I am, and you can even laminate them, which is what I've done in my room, but it's completely up to you. So I'm going to tape this and then come back to you. So I like to put my tape sticky side up. I just put tape on this piece of paper. I stuck this piece of paper onto here, and I can stick both of these papers on the same piece of tape to just make sure it lines up and it's easy. And I think taping from the back looks a lot better. But once I have these pieces taped on and then these pieces taped on, I'm gonna go ahead and flip it over and then add some more support tape where they meet. Alright you guys, my anchor chart is now taped together. I'm going to show you what it looks like. I think it turned out awesome. Now keep in mind, it does not have to be perfect, and it is not going to come out perfect every time. Most of the time, people are not going to notice, especially your kids are not going to notice if you cut something a little too much or a little too less, if you have like a gap between it, or if it doesn't overlap and line up quite right. Most of the time, nobody's going to notice that. But this anchor chart took me no time at all. It is super, super simple. Some of you guys are thinking, yeah, that's great, but also that is a lot of ink to be printing those anchor charts. I use HP Instant Ink. I'm not sponsored or anything, but the link is always in my description box. I pay a set amount per month to have a set number of pages, and I can print full page color with those pages, and my printer knows when I need more ink, and they will send me more ink before I ever run out. So it's not an issue with me, and that price I pay per month is way cheaper than just buying ink for a regular printer. Also, you could just do black and white anchor charts and print them maybe on your school printer and then do it there. But what I really love about this is that it is so easy. It's so simple, so quick, so much faster than tracing on an anchor chart. The first time you do it, it is going to be a little bit tricky, but once you figure out how to cut it, it is smooth sailing from there. You're gonna be able to do it in half a second. So I really appreciate you guys checking out this video. If you learned something new, if you liked it, if you thought it was cool, make sure you give it a thumbs up, share it with other teachers who you think might benefit from it, and comment down below. Tell me what ideas you have for these anchor charts. I've done a number of things, from creating layouts and having kids come up and write on it, inserting writing lines into it, and all sorts of really fun things. But tell me your ideas down below. What would this really work for you? If you have any questions, or if there's something that I left out, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to help you. I also have a couple of other videos in this Miss Call Create series. You can click right up here to hop on over to the playlist. I do a lot more work in PowerPoint, so if you're like, that's great, Maylene, but like, I'm not good with PowerPoint, I'm not techie, check out some of those videos, and I think you'll learn enough tips to really get you where you need to be. If you guys have any other requests for some Miss Call Creates videos, just let me know down below. I do have my PowerPoint video coming out as my next Miss Call Creates videos, so stay on the lookout. You guys, I hope you loved that video. You can always reach me here on YouTube in the comment section down below. I love hearing from you. You can also message me on Instagram at Mrs. Calls Campers, or you can email me at calltheteacher@gmail.com. I love you guys so much.